Hello. Hi, Jennifer.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of our president, Miguel Martinez Sands, and our community of scholars, I welcome you to St. Francis College. Thank you to our organizers and guests for being here today, both in person and on our virtual campus. HITN TV is a leading Spanish language media company that offers educational and cultural programming for the whole family. It reaches more than 44 million homes in the United States and Puerto Rico through various media and streaming services. This film festival is a celebration of the impact and influence of Latinx creatives in the film industry and empowers our storytellers to share their experience and cultures with the next generation of young content creators. The Youth Fest is being presented in collaboration with educational institutions like ours in the US and Puerto Rico, and inspires Latinx artists to grow in front and behind the lens. Students in this program and who are part of this film festival will also have the opportunity to meet industry-leading experts through online interactive workshops, panels, and small group discussions, giving students an opportunity to connect directly to award-winning industry experts. SFC and HITN TV are a perfect match. St. Francis College has a proud heritage of preparing students to take their places as leaders in their fields and to becoming contributing members of society. With a vision founded on ideals and teachings of St. Francis of Assisi, the college plays a vital role in the community and in the lives of its students and alumni. St. Francis College is a college whose Franciscan and Catholic traditions underpin its commitment to academic excellence, spiritual and moral values, and social responsibility. Recognizing the original Franciscan understanding of hospitality as a challenging, risk-taking social contract, we strive for success in achieving those goals by promoting academic excellence, advancing a thriving intellectual community, supporting student life, and the development of the whole person. We create a hospitable and community atmosphere based on trust and mutual respect. I'd like to focus for just a minute on that word, hospitality. To welcome others, to recognize that despite our differences, the diverse human family is part of the same belonging, and we need one another to survive and to thrive. Hospitality is simply a practical working out of this truth. Hospitality means not only welcoming people with their concrete needs, but also making a safe space for the expression of their differing perspectives and ideas. In these challenging times, perhaps more than ever, it is important that we challenge ourselves to embrace the spirit of hospitality, not only in our homes, but in our educational institutions, our places of worship, and in fact, our lives. Such an open-minded and open-hearted stance is radical because it is fearless. So let us follow in the steps of St. Francis, who once said, "Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance." The United States has always drawn on the strength and spirit by welcoming and being hospitable to wave after wave of immigrants. Each generation, they have been one of our most important assets and have strengthened our economy, enriched our culture, and renewed our promise of freedom. As promised by HITN's Lena Sands, our young Latinx community offers distinct perspectives developed from unique life experiences. These storytellers just need a pathway to make their voices heard, and our goal with the film festival is to provide a platform to amplify their work. May we all continue to strive for this radical idea of hospitality. Thank you again for being here. You are welcome at St. Francis College. And now, disfrutan las películas. Enjoy the films.
Thank you, Dr. Lancaster, for the wonderful welcome. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the students joining us from St. Francis College and all of our online audience. I'm Alejandra Molina, and for a little under 2 years, I've been the director of the Cuentas Cine Youth Fest. The Cine Youth Fest was originally the brainstorm of myself and Cynthia Rivera, my colleague at the Hispanic Information Telecommunications Network, or HITN, where I am privileged to work. HITN has been an incubator of talent for Latino TV professionals for the past 40 years. Founded by a Puerto Rican Latino staff and presently led by a Puerto Rican president and CEO and a Latina board of directors, it is the largest non-commercial Hispanic cable TV station in the U.S., serving 40 million families. Today's conference is a wonderful step in the right direction for the future of content creation, production, distribution, and even consumption. The world is changing, and we must learn or relearn the importance of what I call stirring the pot. The following are examples of cultural production and marketing that have helped wake people up. Birth of a Nation, the 1915 film glorifying the birth of the Ku Klux Klan, became the highest grossing film of that year. President Woodrow Wilson also granted the film a private showing in the White House. The Battle of Algiers, the 1966 film premised on the struggle of the Algerian people against French colonialism, was not allowed in French movie houses until 1971. Ironically, Algeria became independent in 1962. Salt of the Earth, produced in 1954, was blacklisted in the US for its pro-union, pro-Mexican, pro-woman perspective and panned as a piece of communist propaganda by prominent cultural critics at the time, i.e. New York Times. All of these films caused cultural shockwaves and then channeled consternation, debate, outrage, and joy into helping to change the world. This is what your work has the potential to do. Your ideas, your stories, your vision, refine it, get input, do research, practice it, and then do it all over again. Produced in the next El Mariachi or Vida or Reservation Dogs instead of the next Beverly Hillbillies, Father Knows Best, or the Dukes of Hazzard. The moderators and panelists you hear from today have work experiences that run from production manager to film producer to actor to podcaster, that they all have one thing in common, even today. They've learned to work collaboratively as part of a team, be it as a leader or as a team member. They go to work in a classroom, in a sound booth, behind or in front of a camera, in front of a final draft screen on a laptop. They know to a certainty that something will go wrong today. A tech glitch, a late payment, bad audio, non-collaborator. But here's the thing, without exception, they will get back up and fix it, whatever the problem. You need to practice getting back up and fixing it. Thank you, and please take advantage of today's workshops to ask questions. To start the Young Filmmakers Conference, I'd like to introduce your moderator for the first panel, Dr. Augusta Palmer, professor from St. Francis College. Thanks.
Hi there. Sorry for that slight delay in my coming to the screen. I'm so honored to be here for the Cuentas Cine Youth Fest this year, and to start out with the first panel, which is a panel from script to screen and the art of storytelling. I am Augusta Palmer, and I teach film production and film studies, film history. So those remarks really hit home with me about the Battle of Algiers and and reservation dogs for that matter, this continuum of great work that's being done by voices that we haven't always heard from. And I would like to welcome an amazing panel to talk to you about storytelling. So first, I would like to welcome Dr. Raquel Ortiz, an award-winning and Emmy-nominated storyteller and anthropologist. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Thanks. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and excited to talk about Latinos telling and sharing their stories.
Okay, and I would also like to introduce Waldo Cabrera, who's an Emmy-nominated journalist and storyteller. Waldo, introduce yourself a little bit, if you will, to the audience.
Hi, I'm Waldo Cabrera, and I'm the executive producer at iSlip TV out on Long Island, and I focus on telling the stories of the amazing people in our communities, the folks that are doing great things but don't get enough of a spotlight.
And last but certainly not least, Kate Grant, an SFC professor and someone who I'm collaborating with right now on a short film project. So we've been thinking and talking about story with one another quite a bit. Kate, would you like to say a little bit to introduce yourself?
Sure, happy to be here today. Hello, everybody. I am a professor here. I teach acting and I teach dramatic writing. I teach public speaking, and I like to think of myself as very eclectic in my storytelling. I'm a playwright primarily, but I'm a emerging talent in screenwriting. So I'm the oldest living emerging talent. So I hope that it inspires others to, kind of charge off in a new direction, no matter what stage of life you're at, and no matter how much money you have in your pocket.
Well, I do find that inspiring, and I think it's, we always have time to emerge. And if we're not constantly emerging, what are we here for? That's what I would say, right? So I wanted to ask the whole panel, and I'll start with Dr. Raquel Ortiz. How do you approach storytelling, and what's your process?
Sure. So I start not so much with an idea, if not with a problem or a conflict that I'm trying to figure out, and I'm trying to find answers to for myself more than anyone else. And one of the things that I think every time it's different, because every time it's a different process, but reflecting on what I think I always do is I have a tendency to actually draw things out, and not beautiful Van Gogh art by any stretch of the imagination, the opposite. So I'll do these graphic organizers that all the students watching think they will never ever use. But I start with the circle of what these words are and try and fill just a couple words. And then all these little arrows of different pieces of that. And I think I look at it like a puzzle, and I try and bring these pieces together. And then with all stories, there's this beginning, middle, and end. So I don't know about you all, but usually endings are the real issue, or sometimes middle is the real issue. The beginning is usually given. So kind of struggling with that, struggling with those pieces, then trying to struggle with the rhythm, and then just really trying to reflect on what this story is and what I'm really trying to say.
Great. Waldo, would you like to chime in on your approach to storytelling and your process in creating stories?
Generally, my storytelling, there's a lot of unknowns in what I do because I'm a journalist, and I also do a lot of documentaries. So if you're focusing on a documentary, you sort of have an idea of what you want to tell, the story you want to tell, but you don't know what's going to unfold as you follow the story along. So in my case, I really have to be flexible, at least in when I'm recording the process. I have my notes. I know what the story of the individual or the organization is, but you just have to be careful not to put too much of yourself into the story and allow the story to come to you in my field. And once I'm done with the actual videotaping and the production, when it comes to editing, I do need to know how it ends. It's key to understand the ending of your story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You just need to know how it ends, and then you can work backwards from there. You can build up to that. But if you don't know how it ends, it becomes it's a little cloudy. Especially, getting to the beginning and like Raquel said, possibly the middle, but you need to know what the knockout punch is going to be. And that's how I do it.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot because I do a lot of documentary filmmaking. Although now I'm an emerging fiction filmmaker, like Kate is an emerging screenwriter. But often I think in documentary, we know neither the beginning nor the end when we first start out. So we're just trying to keep our eyes and ears wide open. And a feature film that I'm working on now called The Blues Society about blues festivals in Memphis, Tennessee. The current opening of that I shot in 2016, and I had no idea that it would be the opening of the film. It's just an interview with the character from the stories. And so I think that sometimes for documentarians, that beginning will come last. That idea of working backwards is very familiar to me. But fiction can be quite different. So Kate, would you like to weigh in on how you approach storytelling and your process?
Absolutely. Raquel, what you said about working something out for yourself, no matter what the itch comes from, whether it's from the New York Times, whether it's from an event in my life, whether it's, something I heard about, a person, I'll write, and then I'll discover what it is I'm trying to work out as I'm writing. Notwithstanding, I usually have an end in mind. Now I hold on to that end lightly. But I always am looking for, what is leading my protagonist, whether that protagonist is one person, whether that protagonist is a group. I'm leading them from darkness to light in some way. So, it's ostensibly this protagonist, but usually I'm also making that journey with my protagonist, that I'm moving from darkness to light, ignorance to understanding. Whether that understanding is, hey, we're all mortal, we're all going to die, big realization, but it can come about in any number of ways. And what are the events and circumstances I'm going to pile up to bring those people or that one person into alignment with the truth as I'm seeing it at that moment. And those are usually emotionally devastating events, because how do we change, right? We change because, a rock changes because the ocean pounds away at it, again and again and again, and eventually it's sand. So as a playwright or in any dramatic writing in particular, we're looking for what will take this person who has this blindness, Oedipus, and put them through these escalating events that ultimately wear away that which is keeping them from understanding or the truth.
Right.
Great. And so maybe I'll start with Waldo this time. What do you think makes a good storyteller? And do you have any tips or tricks that you could share about being a good storyteller?
I always like to use this analogy. You ever have that uncle that tells that joke that he heard, and then the joke just drags on, and I'm sure that it was funny when he heard it, but it's not funny when he said it. And it's on the delivery, and sometimes my most important thing is to know when you're done talking. Like, understand when you made your point, stop talking, or stop either don't go any further with the story than after you made your point, because that is really a turnoff when either you don't get to it right away. In the world of journalism, sometimes you have 2 minutes to tell a story. A feature story for me is 6 minutes, if that long. So I can't waste any words, and I can't waste any scenes in what I do. As you know, as things get longer, maybe I'm doing a documentary, but even so, you know, you have a 30 minutes to maybe tell the life of someone, or a major scene in a major time in history. You don't have time to waste words, and you don't have time to waste any scenes. So you make your point and you move on. Make your point and you move on, and just don't talk any longer than you should. So that's my key to storytelling, and my tips.
Succinctly put too. So excellent work. Raquel, what do you think makes a good storyteller? And any tips or tricks from you?
Right. I think the thing that I try to do a lot with is to bring my audience with me, and for them to somehow participate, to be a part of this story, to be a part of this happening. What I've done the most is I have going on 6 picture books that have been published. So I'm physically in front of crowds a lot, little people that always want to be a part of something. But I think humans in general want to be a part and want to feel like somehow they're doing this with us. So what I usually use is music. And with the live things I do, it's, you know, having them sing with me. So when I'm doing the documentary or the animated piece that Waldo and I worked on, with our animated piece, there was a song, and obviously we're singing, but the whole hope is that we together sing this song, or that, you know, the melody stays with you. And I've been told it's like an earworm sometimes that these songs like stay with you and keep with you. So bringing them with me on this journey and making them a part of whatever it is, whatever story that I'm telling.
I just have to warn anyone that is looking to work with Raquel. Just be ready to have a song play in your head for about 100 hours. She comes up with these little rhythms and riffs, and you're like, cocinando con cuentitos, and you can't get rid of it.
We're infiltrating hearts and minds.
So Kate, what do you think makes a good storyteller?
I've heard so many great things from Waldo and Raquel. You know, everything has a dramatic code, according to one of my favorite writers about story, which is John Truby. And the dramatic code is that, I'm paraphrasing his words, is that which is embedded in any great story, which is a description of how human beings evolve, how they grow. So even a song, you know, has something that illuminates, a great song illuminates something about the human experience. So, you know, music is story. Whether you're writing a comedy, whether you're writing a sci-fi, horror, you're making a speculation that this kind of person, this character that you've developed, given these experiences, is going to change and evolve this way. Like, you know, I'm just trying to think of an example. All my examples are, you know, from like 30 years ago, but let's look at Silver Linings Playbook, you know, which was a comedy, great movie. And the writer made this postulation that, or the speculation that given these circumstances, that this young man who had this very particular kind of mental illness had an opportunity for growth given these circumstances that came into his life, either, you know, serendipitously or through his own mistakes. And we saw step by step how companionship, how experience with the therapist, how this dance competition all led this young man towards being able to open his heart to new experiences. Now that's a great comedy because it's funny, but it also tells us something about human beings, and ultimately, personally, has the old school optimism of like comedy, people coming together to help each other, and help each other grow. To me, that's the highest level of comedy. So that's just, I try to, look at where can I enhance understanding, and where can I show people moving through difficult experience, and whether or not they go down in flames, like Macbeth went down in flames because he didn't listen to those witches, listen to the witches, but he didn't, and he went down in flames. But it's still optimistic because it's saying the world has meaning, and that if you mess up too much, it's not going to work out well for you. So that's optimistic because it's prescribing an order to things. Anyway, that's just me.
Sounds great, Kate. So how do you approach character development? Whoever would like to take that one first. Anyone just jump in.
I like to just speak first because I'm not the writer in the group. and character development is really tricky when you're interviewing people. So I view my interview process as a form of character development. And I always, when you ask any politicians, you ask anyone a question, they give you their stock answer. And to me, that's the throwaway. It's like, whatever you just told me, you have told every other person with a microphone and a camera. So I don't want to hear that. So then I start just going a little deeper. And by the time you get to your third or fourth question, where maybe the person ran out of stock answers, that's when you start seeing who the individual really is. That's when you start getting into why, you get rid of the facade. And that's a key in being a journalist. You want to get beyond the obvious, and you want to get beyond the sound bites. So it is not exactly character development, but you need to understand that you need character in your story in order for your story to stand out. So it's difficult for me because I'm not in full control of my character's thoughts and feelings, but that's how I approach it.
Well, I'd go next, and I don't think I'm in control of my characters either. And Kate, you can chime in because they have something. When I do a lot, most of mine is fiction, and I always am inspired by someone. So Waldo has a beautiful 6-year-old, yes. So she has been inspiring me recently, and I'm trying to figure out that story. So I start with a live child a lot of times, and I'm studying him or her that I'm trying to wrap around the context, like what is their backstory, what is their neighborhood, who and what they are. And then when it's a written piece and even a film piece, it's like you said, very tight. So then what are 2 or 3 little tastes of their character that I can give you that will help you understand them as well as possible? So there's that. And then I don't know if anyone else is going to share it, but then there's always a little bit of me, and there's always a little bit of something that I'm like playing with or questioning or trying to fix or trying to get rid of. So there's a lot of outside, there's some inside. And like Kate had mentioned before, there's this like listening and reflecting. So it's a lot of pieces, but yeah, no, the character, I don't feel like I super create. I think I'm trying to listen and understand the character and then share that character.
Waldo, I don't think that your process is that much different really from fiction writing, or because you're looking for truth, no matter, ultimately, if you're an artist and, you're in it to win it, you're looking for truth that will resonate with people and that they can hear and absorb. So, the role of the role that you take, Waldo, in interviewing people is precisely, what you're doing. You're observing, and you're making some guesses. You're not as responsible as you are, Waldo, to absolute veracity. You're mixing and matching people, characteristics of different people. And as you say, Raquel, it's totally, I don't plan to put myself in anything, but afterwards, like, oh my gosh, look at the way that person, prevaricates, or that person fibs about, that's me, so all of those things. But there's another aspect, especially for dramatic writing, that's a little bit particular about choosing characters. You're looking for characters that are going to rub up against each other in a way to create conflict. So you have in mind characteristics that will force things out of people rather than people kindly telling each other things about themselves. And you want them to force them out of their conventional behaviors, like you say, Waldo, getting to the bottom, getting beyond the polite answer, So conflict, when we have conflicts and we have extraordinary events that upset people, that put people on the defensive, then we see who they are. And that's exciting for the audience. So you're choosing people, this is called, or we call that a little bit orchestration. You're trying to consider how these characters are going to create fire. So that's another element of character development that I want to throw in, since my other two panelists covered the areas so well.
Yeah, I mean, all this resonates with me because you, as a documentarian, you do a lot of accumulating material, very much what Waldo was talking about, with just pushing through what's the next question, or what happens if I come back to that same question 30 minutes later and the person has sort of like dropped some of their guard, or, all these kinds of things can be helpful, but you're adding, you're accumulating, and then you go back and you're deciding often, like, what are the 3 sentences this person said in 30 minutes or an hour even, that really define what their character is, what their truth is for me in this moment as a journalist or a documentarian. But I think also with fiction, it seems that you have to generate a lot and then stream it down and then decide how to place it along an arc to create this movement of story that we're brought along with. So
one thing
yeah,
I would encourage all of our young filmmakers to take some psychology courses and philosophy courses, because a lot of times you're talking to someone and you have to listen to what they're not telling you. And, so, I mean, and once again, this is just because, as a journalist, you want to get to the story. So what they're not saying is many times as important as what they're telling you. So then you could bring it out and say, well, we didn't talk about this, or why are you avoiding this topic? Why are you speaking about it this way? And it's about just reading between the lines. And I found that my philosophy and psychology courses helped a lot in understanding human behavior. And I think it made me a better filmmaker.
If I could add to what Waldo was saying, is subtext. We call that subtext in both theatrical writing and cinematic writing. And I think the subtext, what's not being said, is theatrical writing is more verbal and things are expressed more in words. And then the actor, and my actors are here today, so I want to bring the actor into this. The actor adds in the nonverbal language, which is very eloquent about subtext, right? Whether the eye is shifting or how the body is positioned. And, writers can write that in, but they can also collaborate with the actors to help them to understand that which is not being said and find ways to express it. So the audience gets the big picture, rather than just simply what the person is saying. The actor, by the way, is a co-writer in some ways. I mean, we don't share credit with them, however, in reality, the actor participates in the writing process when you're doing dramatic writing, because they're bringing a nonverbal language, which you haven't necessarily written in. And perhaps is even more significant than your words. They say nonverbal language is more impactful, so they don't even need us. But we do structure the events.
So I think collaboration has been coming up a lot naturally. So I wanted to ask Waldo and And Raquel, it sounds like you guys have collaborated before. And do you like to work collaboratively? What are the pluses and minuses? So if you guys could address that, I think that would be really wonderful.
We love working together. You want to start?
Well, no, Raquel, I mean, honestly, you were the catalyst to this. So why don't you lead off on it?
Well, I think sometimes being a writer can be very, very lonely. So I was super excited with the project, one of the projects that we've done. I had this idea and I went to Waldo and went to the team at Centro, and we had little pieces already made of this animated folktale. So I wrote some things, I spoke with Waldo. Waldo started like explaining to me the whole world of animation, which the great thing with collabs is that you bring your knowledge and then other people bring their knowledge and their expertise. And then the most magical thing about this project is essentially I gave him a part of it and he just ran with it and he made it all happen. Obviously, I'm summarizing. There were many months and years and like tears and fighting and looking for stuff like funding. But the main thing is you have someone to share with and you have someone that pushes back. So I think like I've learned so much working with Waldo and then working with a couple other producers that I work with. And my main takeaway is to listen and then to question and really to reflect, because whoever I've worked with, they've always wanted the project to be better. So sometimes it's not the way I want it or not the way I see it. And that's okay, because my way might not have been the better.
A good example of that is, just to Raquel's point, you have to be ready to defend your decisions. If somebody's questioning whatever creative choice you've made, you have to be ready to defend it. And if you can't defend it, then you got to be ready to back off. You know, you can't make something part of a collaboration if you can't justify it. So that you always have to be ready with it. And I know that Raquel and I always try to explain, like, why is this important? Why is this here? And at first we had a Cucarachita Martina. She was being asked by many of these characters to they want to sing with her at a talent show. And at first we were thinking about representing Latinos worldwide in this story. And we were thinking about each character having a specific Spanish accent. So we were thinking about, bringing in a little bit of the world. But, we were working, it is a story for the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. And our director at the time said, everybody's Puerto Rican, all the characters are Puerto Rican, or with because you have to choose an accent, right? That's the thing about Spanish. You have to figure out which Spanish accent that you're going to use. Is it going to be Spain Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Dominican Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish? So you have to decide how, what direction are you going to give your characters. And once he said that, I said, you know what? You're right. I didn't push back. It was, I would have preferred to have a bunch of different Spanish accents. But the truth is that, it is the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. And, and it is a Puerto Rican folktale that we're telling. And the only character that doesn't have a Puerto Rican accent is Senor Perez, who has Spanish roots and is considered to be possible royalty. So we gave him the traditional Spanish accent. But you got to be ready. You have to be ready to listen and to either say, no, it has to be this way, or back off. And that's the great thing about our collaboration between Raquel and I, that we respect each other's decisions. And we got nominated for an Emmy. We were at the Tribeca Film Festival. So I guess I would say it worked.
We're working. It's working out. It's working out. Fingers crossed for the Emmy.
Yes.
So Kate, would you like to talk a little bit about collaboration?
Oh, sure. I love collaborating, and in the theater, the vibrant collaboration takes place in the rehearsal room, because you're kind of alone working on your play. And my favorite part is getting into the rehearsal room where the actors go, what does that mean? That doesn't make sense. Why would this person say that? And, can I try this? I love all that. The only thing is especially as I get older, it's less of a problem, but I have a writer's ego, and part of me goes like, no, right away. But now I've learned now to just kind of hold my thoughts in abeyance. And if something doesn't immediately strike me, I just say, okay, could you give me a day or two to just kind of like allow this to kind of go through my body and for me to respond to this. And usually when I do that, I generally see what people generally don't speak up just to hear their gums flap. They think there's a problem, or they think they can improve things. So it's really, there's just, one thing, playwrights tend to be, because legally, or, in terms of the contracts that you work with, when you work with producers and you get a contract, it says you are not allowed to adjust my script unless I say you can adjust my script. However, in screenwriting, that's not really, you don't have the same protections, and there is expected a larger degree of collaboration. And I find I'm very happy to collaborate, because I tend to be a little wimpy, and when I hit a wall, I just go and eat. So having a collaborator sitting with me on Zoom or some other place like Augusta, makes me stay with the painful issue. And, the pain of writing, the pain of making a choice, the pain of solving a problem. And there's another shoulder to cry on, and there's someone who can kind of lead me into fresher water. And so that's the beauty of collaboration. You surrender ego, but you gain a bigger pool of water to swim in.
Nicely put. Raquel or Waldo, you want to have anything more to say about collaboration? Or I guess you've said a fair amount. You could also tell us, what are you working on now, and where are you in the process, and what challenges or problems have you encountered?
Well, I wanted to add, in terms of collaboration, there was a big part of what made our animated piece successful was that, Raquel wrote, she adapted Pura Belprez's story for today's audience. But once we gave the text to the characters, and we gave them some direction, it was one actor that read all the male voices, and then we had one actor that read the Cucarachita Martina, the only female. But once we gave them direction, they ran with it also. So everybody was running. Fortunately, we were all running in the same direction. We weren't running away from each other. But once we got the audio back, I just said to myself, this is phenomenal. So they did things with their voices and in how they delivered the lines that I just never expected. And it forced me to up my game, because I realized these guys came to win. So when I animate, I better show up too. So now we had a great story by Raquel, great delivery by the actors. And then the music came in, the song came in, and it was a killer song. And then the pressure was on. You're like, okay, now I have to deliver. So the collaboration, it was also inspiration by all the different creative people that were in our team. And that, I think that's why it's so important that we give everybody that was involved in this project all the credit, because this was definitely not a one-person thing. It was, everybody had something that they brought to the table, and it really was impressive how we did this all via Zoom during the pandemic.
Yeah, I would say that I think the one gift I give to people that I work with is creative freedom, because I think that's what we want and need and crave the most. We love the money and, the fame when it happens, it's ephemeral. So we're not going to talk about that too much. But being able to let people bring their hearts and souls to it, I think makes it really, really magical. And then going forward, the one big thing I'm waiting for the boat from China, is that I have books that are slowly coming to us. The new story is called Broken Butterfly Wings, and it's a picture book. And what we did is we filmed a book trailer for it in Puerto Rico, because the story is about remembering El Yunque. So I am doing this weird dance of like writing stories, making mini movies, like trying to tell these stories in all these different ways, which I think everyone on this panel is also in that space with me. So nothing, the book trailer is doing phenomenal. Let's see if the book gets here and how the book works. And then going forward, I'm hoping to work on an adaptation of a story that I wrote a couple years ago called Planting Flags on Division Street, which would honor and celebrate the Puerto Rican community in Chicago. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
Very exciting. And Waldo, are you working on those projects too?
No, Raquel and I are talking about doing a real cool project. It's called Cocinando con Cuentitos. And that one I like a lot because it involves children's books that have recipes. And we did a trailer, or we did a pilot episode where Raquel reads the books, but she's in the kitchen and she has two youngsters with her, helping her chop up the onions and, and stir the soup. So you get to read the book and then you get to make the recipe. And it's a real fun, interactive way of not only reading, but, teaching them some basic culinary skills. And then we have a great friend, Bob Ramos, and he's in the back doing special effects with his congas, and he's a percussionist. So we brought him in as, but he's live, he's right there, as you're chopping, he's with a guido going. So if you're chopping, he's also making the sound effects. And it's just cute. We just thought it was, to have that kind of dynamism on screen will keep the attention of the youngsters. Because, the days of just doing a straight read to a 6-year-old, I don't think you can do that as effectively as maybe you're doing a read, you're cooking, and you got a little bit of music involved. Then the story will sink in a little bit more. So I'm excited about that project, and I hope that at some point we figure out how to get back together into a studio, because we have to pause it. And then of course funding is always a struggle with these situations. It's something as reading and literacy, it's not always the easiest thing to get funded. If you have Desperate Housewives or something where people are belittling each other, you'll find a network that'll give you production dollars. But if you're talking about literacy, it's a little tough to find funding for that. But we'll figure it out once we can get back together.
Yeah, funding is always, I think, for artists in general, but for media artists especially, because things just cost so much to go into a studio. You can't. We can find workarounds and we can make home studios, and sometimes that will get us to a certain point. But, to do things really at industry standard, can be very expensive. So we have some questions coming in from the audience, but Kate, I wanted to ask if you would talk about the project we're working on a little bit, and that the fact that it came from Zoom, which is interesting because they were talking about working on Zoom too. So.
Well, interestingly, the theater community, I did more writing during the pandemic than I think I ever have. Well, part of the reason was I wasn't running around the way I usually am. But another reason is that theater companies were desperate to maintain their presence online. And, theater companies are, operate by, very, very limited funding, and they have to keep their name out there. So I got a lot of requests for material. And I had seen this documentary called The Work, which was about prisoners who created, along with an outside group, a therapeutic model. And they brought people in to help them. And they brought people in from the outside to do this it was a men's workshop, to do this support group together. And it was so powerful and so moving that I said, I want to write something about prisons. And then I also, and about people, the way people can evolve in prison. And I also am very interested in the issues of mothers. That's always been an interest for me. And so I decided I was going to write a short piece in which a mother reaches out to her daughter that she's been estranged from, thanks to a prison funded group that attempts to reunite families. And so she reaches out to her daughter, who's, she hasn't seen for 20 years. And the daughter refuses to allow her face to be seen and only chats. So it was quite effective on Zoom because, there was the suspense. Who is this girl? Why isn't she showing her face? And the mother, of course, longing so much to see the face of her daughter. And so there was an automatic drama inherent in it. So I did a short piece. And then after the pandemic, the piece was so effective and powerful. I was like, I can't just let this go. And so I wrote a full-length theater piece in which there's progression in the relationship, and they move from online to being together in person. And then so many people said, this would make a great short film. This would make a great short film. So I was like, you know what? I've never made a short film, but why not? I know people who make films. And Augusta was the first person I thought of because she's so smart. And I've seen her documentaries are amazing. And so I talked to her about it, and she saw one of the performances and she agreed to help me with it. And we're working on it. It's just a ball and a wonderful joy.
Yeah, it's really fun going back and forth, and it's gotten bigger and then smaller, and maybe, it's thinking about those different ways that you can put a piece out, that maybe there'll be a shorter version and maybe a longer version, and how can you express this story differently in those. It's very exciting. And I'm really enjoying working back and forth on it. So we have some questions from the audience now. So I will read the question, and then whoever wants to answer first can just jump in. So Julia Porco wrote this question. What goes into writing a scene, and what materials are you most proud of in your writing? I imagine that's.
Who's gonna take it?
I'll jump in a little bit because I'm probably the one who's maybe not, but that's what I do. I write scenes. The first thing I do when I write a scene, I think of where it fits in the all over story, what I want it to accomplish, where it is in the play. And then I consider it as a play in of itself, except the only difference, all the requirements. You need escalating conflict. You need intention. You need three-dimensional character development, everything you need for a play, except the end of the scene has got to lead you into the next piece. So there has to be something resolved, a question that's posed, a vacuum that's introduced, so that there needs to be more material. I want to move forward with it. I'm not going like, okay, let's go to Netflix instead. So, that's how I think about scenes.
And for me, I don't write scenes, but I have to get them on camera. So the key for me to be able to record a scene is to be able to get those alternate camera angles. A lot of times we get married to maybe that point of view, but we have to think about what does it look like from behind the curtain or in between two, just look for angles that make the scene more visually interesting. So as a producer, that's my job. And it's really cool to think about. If you watch, I just recently watched, my daughter's been obsessed with Ratatouille, but if you stop and just watch the different reaction shots, point of view, all the different shots that they put in there, it's amazing if you study their shot selection. So for me, it's about doing action reaction, and also I try to put in an unexpected camera angle, and not gratuitously. You don't want to put in there fancy stuff just because you dreamt it. It has to make sense. But you got to make sure that the scene is also pleasing visually.
Right. And I would just add, you mentioned action reaction. So I think also conflict solution. So what's this problem? How do we solve it? And then, like Kate mentioned, and then take me to this next piece.
And what is the work that you're most proud of? The projects that you're most proud of?
Well, I'm proud of something that I haven't been able to sell. You know, I was just thinking, and I did a young adult novel, and it's the last chapter that in my mind would translate as the last scene, that right now I'm reworking as a script, because you know how we take things and we don't want to let go of them because we're just not ready to let go of them. Um, but in that scene, the the young woman, she's a freshman in high school, and the title is called Saving Lola. So the whole realization that no one saves me, I have to save myself. So I'm writing these words and I'm like reflecting on, with a novel, you know, it's 250 pages, it's way too much of your life. So I've been with this character for a long, long time. But her and celebrating that she takes that step back and says, people can help, people can be a part of this with me, but ultimately, I save me, I fix me, I take care of me, I love me.
I'm really proud of a project that I tackled that it's a currently unfinished business. And on Long Island, I produced for Verizon Fios local news for 8 years. And I would go to this Holocaust museum, and I would do all these commemorations. And at one point, I found out that the Dominican Republic was the only country, I believe, going back in there was the Geneva Convention, 1939, and 60 countries got together to decide what are we all going to do about these Jews that are being persecuted by the Nazis. We need to give them a home. We need to give them shelter. And no country stepped up except for the Dominican Republic, that provided 10,000 visas for for any Jewish person that wanted to move to Sosua. That's it. So I went to, and when I was little, I would always drive by this community in a language that I didn't understand, and people that were white, and I couldn't understand what are they doing there. And as a youngster, as an 8-year-old, I would go through there. Then all of a sudden, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, that is the where 1,000 Jews moved right from Germany to the Dominican Republic. So I decided to take on that project, and I flew to the Dominican Republic. I managed to interview people that arrived in the Dominican Republic when they were just 6 years old, straight, from Hitler's grip. And then Verizon said that they would only air it if I can connect it to Long Island. So it just so happens that one of the women that was there moved and became a nurse right here, like a mile away from my house on Long Island. And I managed to find her. She was living in Washington, D.C. I drove down there, interviewed her, and she told me about how back then she was actually a translator, a Spanish translator for the kids in our community, because she learned Spanish in the Dominican Republic. And then, she married a doctor and she was a nurse. So it was just, so many things came together from following, that amazing story. And then all of a sudden it ended up being right in my backyard. And, I didn't tell a big enough story with it. And I would love to build on that a little bit, because it was very complicated.
Wow, that's a really amazing story. I'd love to hear a longer story, see a longer story based on that. We have one other question from Cassia Baxter that I think is going to round out our discussion on this panel, and we'll be moving on to another panel. And that question is, what are the toughest aspects of making a film today?
Funding.
I didn't want to say that out loud.
I knew that was going to be the answer.
There's so many amazing stories that we all want to tell. I mean, you yourself are talking about, but the actors need to get paid. The director needs to get paid. You have to rent equipment. It's just tough to get it done. And then once you spend, let's say $50,000, $100,000 on it, you're like, well, how do I make this money back, if at all? So it's just the finances in making films are, you almost have to be in it for the love of it. You want to be able to tell the story and not for profit just because you want the story to be told. But I don't know if you can go into it with a commercial mindset that you're going to turn a profit on it. It has to be more of an artistic approach to what you're doing, unless, of course, you work for, in my case, I had funding from Verizon, who they would just cut a check and I produced with it. But independently is very difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, developing those relationships with people who will fund you, super important. Not always easy, but I think just like a documentarian going out looking for a story, or a journalist, you just got to keep your eyes and your ears open, because you never know who you might be sitting next to at a fundraising dinner, or who you might be walking next to on the street, who happens to know your best friend, and you realize this, so that I think we have to be open to those opportunities, but also I think it's really true. I have a friend who's a filmmaker working on a documentary for about, I think, 6 or 7 years now. And she just says, and she has had some funding from the NEA and the Warhol Foundation. She's actually a good grant writer, but it's just still so expensive. And she just says, well, the only requirement is that when it's finished, I have to think it's wonderful. So having that artistic satisfaction, I think, has to be at the core of it, because you don't know if there's money rolling in afterwards, and most likely not, unless you get really lucky.
Also, another rule that I have is, if you can't explain your film in 30 seconds, then whatever you're doing is not worth it. You have to be able to get somebody's attention, suck them in. So once you understand what it is that you're doing, then it's easier to communicate to others what you're doing. And if you're looking for funding, the person may have a short attention span, or you just need to be able to hit them with pow. And that's part of funding. You have to be able to explain your project almost instantly.
Yeah, and for the correct audience that you have in front of you. So you have to just keep practicing that pitch, and you'll be really done with that pitch when the project is over. Otherwise, all along, I think you have to keep, unless you get really lucky and get somebody in who writes a really big check, and that's of course what everyone wants, but even by the time you get your project to be something that you take to the press, you're doing another pitch. You're saying, this person has 20 requests to cover different things today. Like, why do they want to focus on your project? And you need to be able to tell them that, in 30 seconds or less. Absolutely. I think so. Well, I want to thank Waldo, Raquel, and Kate very much for joining me on this panel. And now I'm going to introduce the next panel. The moderator is Ben Guzman, who's a Grammy-nominated platinum record producer, and he is the moderator for the panel on production, lights, camera, and cinematography. So welcome to the St. Francis virtual world, Ben, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that. Yes, hello. My name is Ben Guzman. I am a music video director, editor, filmmaker. I'm from Brooklyn. Most recently, I've been working as a creative producer at Better Noise Music, a record label. I mainly do music videos there and short form concert films. And we're getting into movies, but I am today joined by some incredible filmmakers who also have strong backgrounds in the music video world. We're going to talk about production. So please allow me to introduce Cacho Lopez Marie. Cacho, how are you? Where are you? Hey, Cacho. Cacho is a filmmaker and founder of Filmes Zapatero. Cacho, if you want to say a few words about yourself, please take it away.
Hello, guys. Hello, guys. I'm a Puerto Rican director, and 10 years ago, I opened my own production company here in Puerto Rico, Filmes Zapatero, for which we've done many music videos. But my career started 10 years before that. I've been directing for 20 years now. Did my first music video for Tego Calderon back in 2002. And we've been, just working quite well, and a lot for the last few years, and really happy to be here. Really excited to share my experience and whatever I can share with you guys.
Yeah, sure. Well, welcome, Pacho, and congratulations on your Grammy nomination. Very happy to hear that. Next up, we have Jay Rivera, also an amazing director, music video producer from Chi-Town, Chicago, in the house. Jose, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Yes. So how are you? How's everybody? I'm also, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in this room. I'm at least the fourth one that I've heard so far. I'm a director from Chicago, focusing in music video work and some narrative work. I also work in television. I'm working on a national broadcast now. I'm a technical director for a new show that's being launched in Chicago. Yeah, just overall creative. I use a lot of video.
Yes, sir. All right, good. Well, welcome, guys. So I just want to get right into it. We'll talk a little bit about kind of how we started. So for me, I got my start with Edward Scissorhands, a VHS tape of Edward Scissorhands when I was a kid. And it's one of my favorite movies. And over time, I guess what I realized about it was why I love it so much, which is the attention to detail. So for me, as I eventually became a filmmaker and kind of got into this world, that attention to detail became something that I like to pride myself on. I like to think that I almost obsess over. You guys are successful and have amazing backgrounds. Can you tell me what shapes your work? That's kind of what shapes my work. It's like finding the detail and the minutia. So for you guys, what's your thing? Like what shapes what you do? Cacho, you want to start?
Yeah, of course. Well, I went to college and studied graphic design. So and I come from a family of graphic designers, and I think a lot of what shapes my work has to do with that background, in terms of the visual qualities I go after. And from graphic design, I learned about color, color theory, about composition, about, getting and mixing technical abilities. I worked at a print shop before that. And from the print shop, for example, I learned that the technical part is very, very, very important for, to give the creative part the wings and what it needs to succeed, right? From that, I started designing and doing a lot of work for musicians and, musical bands and music projects. And from that work, I got the chance to start directing here for a production company in Puerto Rico that saw my work, liked it, and thought that they wanted to get that vision and that aesthetics, I guess, what I was doing aesthetically, they wanted to transfer that into film, and gave me the first chance to work on TV commercials first. And right after I started learning the craft, I wanted to move into music really quick. And well, talking about what shapes my work, I think has to do a lot with what I learned as a graphic designer and how that helped me understand the the mix of the technical and the creative, right, and how that works together to present the work.
Absolutely. No, it totally makes sense. I mean, you got really stylized imagery, so I think it makes sense that those would cross over. I mean, do you have any examples, anything like any videos that kind of stand out that you've done where you feel like this is most evident?
Well, I always talk about my first video ever because it was a great breakthrough for me. It was Abayarde for Tego Calderon. Tego was hitting the mainstream, I guess, at that point. He was growing and he was presenting his first album at that time. And I had the chance to do one of the first videos he did for that album, Abayarde, right? And it was the Abayarde song. So it was a hip hop song, and it was he was a phenomenon, in the making at that point. And I was working from my instinct. I had never done a music video before. Of course, I've watched a lot of them at that point, but I was working without many references, actually, and I think I jumped on it maybe as a short film kind of thing, because I had a narrative concept behind it, and I also worked with his live albums, the photo albums of his life. And so I built a narrative around how those albums get to this place and how he then sits down and just goes through the albums, right? At that point, when the video came out, was really amazing how people started to react to it, and it just brought me my second opportunity, which was really big. The budget for that music video was $7,000, right? And what happened was Ricky Martin saw that video and said, like, hey, who directed that video? I want the director of that video to make my next video, right? And for me, it was just incredible because I was just working with Tego. And all of a sudden I get this call to do this second video, which, of course, the budget was a lot more than my first one. And for me, that video has to, I think, defined how I approached my work from that point on, right? And then, you fast forward to a few years back, and I got a call from Bad Bunny to do a video for his song Calladita, which I love aesthetically, and what we did with photography, wardrobe, art direction, and it was 20 years later, but I think that we have kept a consistent view of how to work on the music and with the artist, and I think intuition has a lot to do with how at least I put together the ideas and then the teams to work on the music videos,
Yes, sir. Nah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Jose, what do you think?
So first off, I think it's important for people to know big glasses aren't a prerequisite to directing. They may be cool, but right. You can wear contacts. It's fine. Yeah. I really like that the story, the Tego story, and how that moved on.
Let me join you guys.
Really cool.
Let me get down.
Oh, wait a minute. So,
you guys here, yeah.
So I guess going backward to the original question you asked him, so horror films are big in my family. I don't know why, they just are. Yeah. And I originally just wanted to be in makeup. I wanted to do theatrical makeup, like special effects makeup. And I got interested in that in grade school, like 7th, 8th grade. I took my eyebrows off one time on accident with putting an appliance on for a werewolf. And I guess what started my love for film was that, because then I wanted to watch more content that had the things I was interested in, which is like the gory stuff. Then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Some of these movies aren't great. Or finding really abstract, absurd films that I've never seen before and thinking like, those are the first times I thought I don't like the way this is. Maybe I can change it, do something different. And it was the first time it dawned on me that I can create something as well. I have a vision and write a story and maybe make something that I would like. And actually, Alejandra, who opened up the conference earlier, he was one of my mentors in high school and challenged me to start learning a Mac when we had the Bondi Blue IMAX. And he had a class where we were shooting like small documentaries in the neighborhood. And I knew from then on that film and creating that type of art was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I found out in those moments, and I went on to film school at Columbia here in Chicago, and then started working with a lot of friends that were in music. So at the time, I met a lot of young people, some people that will be like Save Money in the future, like it's a group in Chicago, or Chance the Rapper, or Smino. Some of these people I met because we were in the same mindset. We want to create for the rest of life. What do we do? How do we, how do we do this? And we're sharing space on a couch, dreaming, and to be able to later take those friends and all those ideas and start making things. You just have to start. I never knew that I would be in a lot of the projects, a lot of the situations I've been in. I don't know. I didn't think I would get there until because I wasn't thinking about it. I was just thinking, I want to make these things. No matter what I'm doing, I still want to create, and focusing on that, not focusing on not being able to, or I don't have this certain camera, I don't have this type of crew, allow me to just be free and create things, and then opportunities come after that. And I think I'm still young in my career, but I've made a lot of things, met a lot of people, and it's taken me across the country, and it's something I'll do for the rest of my life, I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I mean, I think, there's a lot to be said about that. One, it's like how small a world it is, right? This game we're in, it's like, especially with music, music and film, it's such a tiny little world. So it's like, you can meet Chance the Rapper. I had a situation like that with Kid Cudi, and, Cacho got his video in the hands of Ricky Martin. I mean, it's like, it's just like overnight, everything changes so much. It's really fascinating. And then to your point about the camera, I love that, it's not so much about the gear, right? And it's kind of just about creating. Can you tell me, one of you guys, both of you guys, I just want to have a conversation about like preparing for production. From the time with what we do, we submit treatments, we get, we bid on videos. From the time we bid and get it to the time we actually make it, what's that process like? How do you prepare?
Well, in my case, I've been trying to build a team to work with, which it's because I want to work with the same team over and over, if you ask me, Of course, I'm open to collaborating with new photographers, new this and that, new editors and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think that the team, it's a family. And when I say a family, it's literally a family, My wife is my executive producer. My brother is my photographer. My younger brother is the sound guy. So in our case, it has worked that way. And I always tell them that, my brothers, for example, I tell them, you're not here because you're my brothers, you're here because you're good as hell at what you do, And I've been lucky like that in terms of for example, having Chago as my brother, we were raised together. We came up, I'm 6 years older than him, but he became a very, very good photographer, cinematographer, a guy that knows about lighting, and a guy that started working in theater, in show business, in entertainment, live entertainment first, and then transitioned into film. And that really helped, him understanding the direction of light and how to build his universe and his worlds from just using lighting and lenses, and I'm with Jose here. I'm with Jay in that the gear is not what defines the quality of an idea or the quality of a music video. It definitely helps if you're looking
Yes.
for if you're looking for a certain look or a certain aesthetic value, then yeah, of course it helps to have the best equipment available, but at the same time it's not what defines the work. I think there's work done with iPhones right now, or even cameras that are not cinematographic in a way, but ideas, really good ideas transcend equipment, and it is very important to understand what equipment gives you, and when you have equipment available, of course it helps a lot to understand what you can do with it, because sometimes you can have the best stuff in front of you, but if you have no knowledge of how to use it to your advantage, it will not help you achieve what you're looking for, right? So and in the beginning, and just to give you a little anecdote, when I did my first video, I did not know the difference between a 30 millimeter lens and a 50 millimeter lens or 135 millimeter lens. I did not know the difference for real. I learned that on the way, because that's another thing. I did not go to film school, and I used all my knowledge on graphic design, as I said earlier, to just to walk my way into directing in the first place. And it was first the idea and having my clear idea of what I wanted. And I would talk about shots like this, like, okay, I want this, and before I could talk using the right words, I guess. But as you go, you start learning, and definitely learning the technical aspects of the job will help you immensely in terms of achieving and even thinking about new ideas and how to execute them.
Absolutely.
I wanted, if I could, I wanted to say something, two things of what Gacho was saying. One of the things, it's important to have a focus on what you want to do. Like he said, you didn't go to film school, but for me, I went, but I didn't finish. 2 years in, I had opportunities. So I had to weigh all these things in my life, and I was really young and figuring out, do I take this work and eat and make money and create and continue working in my field and so that people know who I am, or do I go to school and waste money? Like it was a hard decision, and I'm not saying that may not be the right decision for everyone. I'd say if you can go to school, do it. Focus on something, but just know that it can change and it can mold. And just like Gacho's saying, is use what you know and put it into what you want to do. I think that's important. And also another thing that was important is saying the first thing that you said about familiarity in your crew. It is so much more comfortable when you have people that you trust and you love that you've worked with for a long time. For example, the DP my cinematographer that I work with, we've known each other since high school, before we knew anything about a camera, when we bought our first DSLRs and figuring out all those things together. So now if we're on a set together, there is nothing, like I trust this person with all my heart to understand what I want and to be able to get it. So it's important to build relationships with people and also continue to work with them, continue to try to build a circle so that when you're in the moment and production is difficult, the bid's in, your treatment already was accepted. So now it's time to start on pre-pro and you're figuring out locations. When you start adding all these different pieces, when you're on set and you're directing, it's so important to be able to just focus on the work that day. on the art that what's going to be in front of that lens. What am I capturing? And when you have people that you trust on set, it makes it so much easier.
And also, if I can add to that, it's very important in my opinion to put yourself into your work so that it becomes unique in a way, because you are unique, and when you put yourself into it, you'll probably get unique solutions to the stuff you want to communicate and you want to put on screen. So when you're working with people that you know for a long time and you've worked with for a long time, and you have that relationship, it's definitely going to help to define who you are in this, and what is it that you want to do. And if you have people that, as Jay said, people you love, people you trust, people that, because you have a strong relationship with them, they will know before you know what you need to do and what you want to do, and how you would do it. Because at the end of the day, as a director, it's your responsibility. Every single second that happens in that frame will be your responsibility at the end of the day. So you wanna surround yourself with people you trust immensely, so that the work is really talking about you and what you are, and not anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and a big point, because it's very much an art, right? I mean, the problem with putting, this 4K camera in everybody in the world's pocket, the problem with it, in my opinion, is on one hand, it's this beautiful thing. It opens up the ability for anybody to do it. And on the other hand, it winds up also kind of being like saturating, almost like saturating the market a little bit. And it's hard to then really like narrow down on like, well, this person's just has a really nice camera and is taking really cool photos and really cool videos, but like they're not behind like they're not putting their heart into it. You got to do everything with your heart, in my opinion. So I think to your point, I totally agree, about the art form aspect. Now, on that note, so today, making a film, making a music video, approaching video period, very different than, when we were all kind of coming up. Jay, I have like literally the same exact story as you, the film school thing, and, same background. What I've noticed today is it's not enough to just be one of those things, right? You have to kind of like be all of it. Sometimes it's best to, it's easier to find a job as an editor and a director, or a director and a cinematographer. For young filmmakers now who are coming into the game, how can they approach this? Like, how can they approach this game right now with this new world we're in?
I think you have to realize what you just said. You have to realize that everyone has a camera. They don't even have to have a camera that costs more than their phone. People are shooting on everything, and you have to realize that you have to get at it right away. You can't worry about not having the gear, but you have to worry about your creativity, what's coming from you, what makes you different than all those other people, and how to execute. And then things will get better. Everything is on the internet today. If you want to be a director and you have to know how to edit as well, take a step and try to figure it out. What do you have access to? I'm sure there's free software that you can find, or save some money and buy Final Cut, or go into Adobe. I use Adobe now for everything. And go online and figure out on a basic level how to edit, and you'll get better at that. And you want to learn motion graphics, so learn something you're on your own and get better at that. But you have to wear a lot of hats. I think even the last project that I had, the budget, it was a good budget, but I still had to edit myself. And I had to cut one of the people that I really love to work with. Like, I had to make sacrifices, and making those sacrifices, you put on the hat now. Like, I'm directing, so I know exactly what I need because I'm also going to be the editor, and I'm working. So you just have to figure out ahead of time, like,
Right.
what are the things you need to do to make that project happen.
Well, I think that new generations coming up in this field are more and more do-alls, people that can shoot, edit, color, this and that,
Yeah.
and they are, and I've seen it happen, because when I came into this 20 years ago, it was very hard to walk into a set. And as a director, it was probably impossible at that point, because you needed so much, the equipment, it was film, it wasn't digital. So you needed a lot of money just to buy the film, and you couldn't just shoot. You had to really organize and know what you wanted, because you had limited time to shoot your stuff, right? You had a few cans of film, right? Right now, you have the equipment is more is available out there. You have the applications and the software to work on edit and effects and color and this and that, and you can do a lot of the stuff yourselves. And what I've seen is that the guys that and the people that are coming up and having their voices heard in terms of work, I think there's a lot of them that do all, because it is so hard to penetrate into the business, into the set as it was before. But today you can do a lot of stuff, and you can really impress a lot of people by just doing it yourself, right? And I think there's because you have the capability, the possibilities now, it is, I guess, not easier, but in a way it's more accessible for a younger generation to really get into this, into the groove and actually do stuff that matters and that people see and share. And somehow that's the way I think you can be stepping up and looking for bigger opportunities to put your talent into work,
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. So on that note, I guess what you're then left with is your mind, right? If you take away all those things, the cameras and this and that, it's really just what do you have in your heart? What's the story you're trying to tell? What inspires you? What inspires you guys? What inspires you when you hear a song? What are you looking for? What are you thinking? Are you trying to keep it accurate to the lyric? I mean, how do you approach, how do you find the creativity, I guess? What's the inspiration?
Well, that kind of depends, I think it depends on the song, on the artist, and the collaboration that happens with the artist, right? For example, the last video I shot is called Flow HP with Don Omar and Residente. It was a song that, talked about two things: Puerto Rico and the codes on the street, So in that case, we saw the opportunity to actually convert into image the lyrics, turn the lyrics into image, right? So it's kind of literal in many ways. And we went after just having that approach. But then you have other songs, other artists that don't want to do that or don't need to do that, and then you have videos where you turn the song into an image, but it's an image that is not in any way literal to the song, so Calladita is an example of that. It's him talking about this girl and how and then all you're looking at is a carousel on a beach, so it's more of a fantastical image, right? That has nothing to do with the actual lyrics, And I think that is a decision you have to make very early in the game. The way I go about it is, when I get a song, I put it on my headphones and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and try to see if there's an image that starts to talk to me. while listening to the song, right? And the style of the song and the style of how the song is made will talk about, you know, if it's an image that should be literal to the song, or an image that should be more poetic, or more, you know, magical realism, or what should I go after. Actually, it's born from the song and the song's personality in my case. So yeah, man, I just hear it a lot of, you know, listen to it a lot of times. And while I listen to it, I'm writing out, you know, whatever comes to my mind in that sense, in that time, without any filter. And then I organize those thoughts and see if there's an idea, a concept that is born out of those images that the song inspired, you know?
Love
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I can't say more than what Cacho was saying. I mean, this is exactly everything you said is perfect. It's what you do. You listen to the song. I mean, I don't know. I can't say more than what you said. I feel like that's how it goes. You know,
That's how it goes, right? Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like it's weird because we wind up, you know, I feel like in my mind it's like you listen to it so much that you almost get to the point where you don't like it. You know what I mean? But then
man, after editing,
right?
After hearing that thing in the edit,
I don't ever want to hear it
times, I never want to hear it again.
Yeah, and right there it becomes a hit, and now you have to listen to it for
and then you have
right. That's exactly right.
After you've listened to it 3,800 times.
I know. Yeah, if you get it before it's mastered too, you get like the demo version and stuff. It's like you're hearing it through the whole iteration. It's crazy.
Which is a great, you know, thing. You have a chance to listen to songs before anybody listens to them, and right. That's, you know, it doesn't make it better or worse, but I kind of trip on that, you know, that you know, a lot of times you hear this super huge hits that, you know, like Despacito, for example. I heard it because a good friend of mine did the video, right? And I was in his studio in Miami, and he was like, "Hey, look, I did this for Fonsi and Daddy Yankee." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I had to say, never. I heard it, everything. Never would have thought about the success of that song, you know, afterwards. But it's the stuff that happens when you work on the, you know, in this world. You start listening to a lot of the music before it becomes even a final version of it. You know, you listen to demos, you listen to songs that have not been even, you know, mixed, and then you work on them, you get tired of them actually, and then they become, you know, this huge hits, you know.
Absolutely. Now I could talk about this all day. I have a couple questions from the audience I wanted to throw to you guys. One of the questions is, let's see, first one is, how do you select projects to work on? That's the first question.
Well, I would love to say I select projects. Okay, go, Jay, go. You go.
Oh no. Well, the last thing that I did was given to me. The person that had saw my work before and wanted a video directed, and they chose me. But otherwise, now I'm thrown off of what you were about to say. Gotcha. But usually, if it's something that I want to do with someone, I either pitch something or reach out, see if they have anything coming out. Then usually they'll let me listen to some things that haven't been released yet, and we can talk about ideas for videos and go from there. But I really have to like the music. I really have to feel something with the music. If it doesn't, I can't just make something for anyone. And I think I got into a trap when I was younger trying to do that. And you hate, like, why would you turn the thing you love into work? You know, it's not supposed to feel like work if you love what you're doing. And if you pick the wrong project just to do it, you'll be bitter and you won't love to do this. So now I just try to. Whatever I'm doing has to resonate with me on a different level. If it's a song, I really have to like that artist's music. I have to like that song. If it's a short film or something, it has to be a concept that I like or something. But it has to resonate with you to be able to work your best and work your hardest on it.
You know, in my case, I think I've gotten there. Like right now, if I really don't feel that I can, you know, that I don't like the song or whatever, you know, that's in that sense, right now I can totally select and go, and say and pass on a project if I feel I have to. Back in the day, though, when I started, the first video I did, I felt, it was I wanted to do it. No, I wasn't called because I hadn't done a video before, so nobody knew I was into it. So I followed. I heard Tego and I was like, I need to do a video for this guy. So I went out and I got it, right. I worked for it. I called the manager. I met with them. I heard the songs and I heard Abayarde, and then I came up with an idea for it, and they loved it, right. But after that, I was actually doing, any opportunity I got, I was out there, trying just to practice and learn and grow into this, and in the first few years, I did quite, I did cool stuff, definitely, but I also did a lot of stuff that, if you looking back, I would, if it was today, I would have passed probably, but every job helped. Every job I do now still, is a process of learning and relearning stuff, and mostly when I'm 46, so I've been at it. I started directing when I was 26, so I wasn't that young, I guess, because I had done a lot of stuff before that. But today you need to be relearning and rethinking stuff, because music videos change, how what people like, what people want to see. And in my case, I try not to follow trends, not to follow, what's going on and what's the latest technique used in the music video business. But at the same time, you need to be on top of it, just to keep your relevance, I guess, and keep, other artists and other clients calling you to keep working. So yeah.
Absolutely. Good answer. We got time for one more. We are going to go with this one, which is a good one. How do you handle working with a difficult person on set, crew, or talent?
Patience.
Ooh, good answer. Good answer. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, there's too much on the line to freak out, so
Yeah.
being able to talk to that person first and take them to the side. That's one thing, an important thing too that I've learned. Don't do it in front of everybody, especially if the person's is upset.
Yes.
I'll ask a question like, hey, what's up with this rig on this, like some question, like to walk away from the group and then just have a little side conversation, see what's going on, see what you can do. Same thing with the artist. If the artist is having, for just whatever reason, they woke up in a bad mood that day, take a break for a second, or take a 15 minutes, talk to the person, give them some space, but you can yell at them afterward.
No, but totally, man. I think you have to understand that everybody has a struggle, and
Yeah.
everybody, you don't know where people are coming from and what's going on in their life. So at that point, you have to understand that if someone's being difficult, a client or a talent or whatever it is, you have to be compassionate, I guess. You don't want to go all out on anybody just because it's being difficult at some point. I think that it has to do with trying to understand where the problem is coming from, because if it has to do with your work and somebody not being satisfied by your decisions, then you need to understand what's going on, even and mostly if it's a client, you know what I mean. So in that sense, I think that it has to do with trying to understand what's causing the problem. And I think if you do understand what's going on and try to get what's going on, you can get out of it.
Well said. All right, fellas, we got to wrap up, but unbelievable conversation. I want to talk to you guys all day. So thank you. And next, I'm going to be introducing Lena Sands, who's the marketing director for HITN and Cine Youth Fest. And she is going to take it away.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So we hope that you've been enjoying our conference so far. We have an intermission coming up, but before that, we have the CYF sneak peek where you get to watch a few of our submissions that have entered into our film festival. Enjoy.
If you could look and see how much cruelty was between these streets, you would be amazed by how much beauty lies beneath. As if the same place we meet is the same place we hail towards the face of the feet, you would be amazed by how much beauty lies beneath. As if the same place we meet is the same place we hail towards the face of the feet. But I see more to my city than most people would see. Walking out every day, praying that I make it home okay isn't just something that they say. To this day, I've yet to tell my friends to have a good day because all I'm able to say is, I hope you make it home okay. My city inspired and built many, but has also destroyed and slaughtered plenty. Facts on my city's not perfect, but yet we stay strong, confessing to the wrongdoings as time goes on. Waking up every day, trying to find a reason, find a way to make these people realize that my city is way more than just bullets, blood, and crime scenes. We're people with hopes and dreams. We're people who have families. We're people. And no matter how odd we may seem, this city, my city, our city, will forever be the home, the birthplace of the strong and the free.
Son la luz de la mañana que alumbra nuevos caminos que van inundando los montes, los senderos campesinos. La semilla del mañana, sembrada en estiércol puro de mi tierra borincana. Soy un pescador de sueños, voy buscando mar de espumas, de caracolas y arenas, de sirenas y de lunas, estrellas y horizontes, se compone mi fortuna. Soy gaviota navegante y astronauta de la bruma. La levadura que alimenta la esperanza del hombre puertorriqueño, del despertar de mi patria. Traigo sangre borinqueña, soy hijo de las palmeras, de los campos y los ríos, y del cantar del coquí, de valles y cafetales, de caña, azúcar y piña, de guayaba, mamposteales, de tembleque y de maví.
Hey Mel.
Hey Mel, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
You know, I'm honestly worried. This quarantine's getting real. I just got promoted at my job and now I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I know. I mean, it's crazy. I guess eventually everything changes, but like, this is insane.
Yeah, you're right. So you are alone at your house. I'm alone in this apartment. You know I hate that. Why don't you just pack a bag and we can quarantine together?
Oh yeah, I'm already of you. I've already started packing just a few things.
Oh.
Nothing crazy. I will be there shortly.
All right. I'll see you soon. I'll start popping the corn.
Perfect.
Oh, can you bring toilet paper? Because I ran out and there's none at the store.
Yes, I actually have the last roll in all of the United States.
Thank goodness.
I'm on the way.
You're a queen. Bye.
Bye.
I'm so glad you came. Thank you.
Me too. Me too. What are we gonna do this week?
Girl, I'm gonna look so fit this summer.
To go where?
Yes!
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't!
You wouldn't! I cannot believe you.
Hey, Mel.
What?
I have Uno.
No! I don't want to play with your lying.
Girl, I am so excited to finally go out to a nightclub tonight.
Too.
Like, this was needed.
And apparently there's a guest DJ. I know.
It's gonna be lit.
It's gonna be lit.
Okay, okay.
Oh my god, look at all the people together. Like, what? We should be there.
It's just not fair.
Like, I want to do all those things that I actually wouldn't be doing, but I want to do them.
Here you go, madame.
Gracias.
Of course. After a long, hard day of watching television.
I'm exhausted.
You know, Mel, even though you cheated up on Kiss,
Oh, yeah. I know. And you, like, left the bottle
and
open
you
on the
put the
couch,
toothpaste
and you left
out on the
shower
sink,
running,
and then you made all the noise
Yeah,
when you
you
were
did
doing
the
it
dishes
in the
on-
morning,
yeah.
like doing it, yeah?
Right.
There's actually still no one I'd rather pelea sola with.
Tranqui, yo perreo sola. Perreo sola.
sorry.
Hi, everyone. Hi, filmmakers, students, storytellers, everyone who's watching us at SFC College and also wherever you may be. I'm Lena Sands. I'm the marketing director for HITN and Cine Youth Fest. And we're back. We're back to bring you the Cine Youth Fest Filmmakers Roundup. This is your chance where you get to ask questions and get to know a little bit more about our star cast that's featuring today. A few of these stars have been with us for a little while. I know Chris, I think we're basically cousins now because we're part of the family. And Nada as well, you've been with us before. And I'm so happy to introduce the rest of you. One thing I do want to say, this is your chance to send us your questions. We've collected so many questions so far. I have a ton of them here. I will try to get all of them in, but if I don't, I promise I'll do the best that I can. So if you can send them to tccyf@hitn.org. It'll be put in our chat as well so that we can see that. Okay, so I don't know how to introduce our first panelist because he's got so much. Honestly, he's an award-winning filmmaker. He just won the 2021 South by Southwest, 2020 South by Southwest. There's so much. Chris, please, can you do us the honors to give us a brief description of yourself?
I am a director, writer, sometimes poet, sometimes, people laugh. I just jam, direct a bunch of stuff. Been directing a lot of comedy specials lately. Some sketch comedy. I also do drama. So I'm kind of like multifaceted, just kind of jump around type guy. And just recently found out I won Best Directing at Fantastic Fest yesterday. So also that, Nuevo Rico's also kind of like doing its run across the festival circuit and in development. So I got a couple fans in development as well. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to keep busy type of guy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, Alex Ramirez. Hi, welcome. You are here with us from Texas, I believe.
Yes, I'm a writer and director from San Antonio, Texas. I'm also a playwright and a teaching artist embedded here in the community. I've also worked as a video journalist here in San Antonio, and I do a whole bunch of stuff.
That's great. A whole bunch of stuff is what everybody does, right? It just works out. Thank you so much. And we have Nada Martinez. Nada, she's a producer and educator. She just won in the 2019, she won the PBS Independent Lens 2020 Audience Award for Decade of Fire. Nada.
Hi, how are you? I'm a longtime cultural worker, originally from the west side of Chicago. A lot of folks know me in the communications and engagement space for entities like El Museo del Barrio and the Joseph Papp Public Theater. Over the past 15 years or so, I've been with some of the leading documentary strands on PBS, and then since went to graduate school and have am an emerging producer with a couple of documentary features under my belt, including The Decade of Fire, which you generously mentioned, and currently producing 2 features and mentoring 2 young filmmakers out of the Philadelphia region.
That's
I
awesome.
also dropped in my university bio in case you want to check the link.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And moving on to Tammy Gold. Tammy is a filmmaker, an educator, and she is at the forefront of social justice, and she focuses on LGBTQ issues. Tammy, thank you so much for being here. You're on mute, Tammy.
Okay.
There you are.
So yeah, thank you. It's very, very nice that you brought me into this. I love to see the work of young people, of the next generation of filmmakers. I'm a longtime filmmaker, cultural worker, and I've done almost always documentaries. We just completed one called Making the Impossible Possible. It deals with the very first Department of Puerto Rican Studies in the United States, and it's a really critical piece because we have to fight for ethnic studies, Puerto Rican studies, Latino studies. So my work is like that, and we just got 2 festivals yesterday, very happily one in Puerto Rico, and the piece is really kind of banging up festivals. I'm really shocked because it's a tiny little jewel. It's a jewel of a story, and nobody knew the story of these activists who fought tooth and nail and won Puerto Rican studies, the first one ever in 1969.
Wow.
So I do that kind of work, and
it's amazing.
Yeah, that's who I am, and I'm a professor.
I was just going to say, and on top of all of that, you're also a professor at Hunter College, correct?
And I have 7 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh! Wow, you're a busy lady. Thank you, Tammy. And now moving on to Juan C. Davila, or is it Juan, or is it JC?
Juan Carlos. Yeah, and JC, Juan Carlos. It's okay.
Hi, JC. Thank you for joining us. JC is a award-winning documentary filmmaker, news producer, and activist. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, hello. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to this panel. I am I was introduced. My name is Juan Carlos Davila, and I basically, try to do films that create an impact in society and that move people to pursue the change that we need and the liberation that we need. And particularly being born and raised in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico being in a United States colony, the decolonization of Puerto Rico is really a factor that drives all of my work. So my work is pretty much focused in achieving that, in being a tool that promotes the liberation of the Puerto Rican people. And I've been doing a couple of documentaries, but I'm just going to talk more about the last one. Most of my work has been focused on also environmentalism in Puerto Rico and environmental activism in Puerto Rico. But my latest film, Simulacros de Liberación, Drills of Liberation, is about a social movement that emerged after a fiscal control board was appointed in Puerto Rico due to the economic crisis. So I follow the activists that have been a part of this movement. I have been organizing this new struggle against a very particular act in the US that basically gives power to a board and takes power from the Puerto Rican people.
Wow. Is that it? Or do you have more? I saw you gave you a thumbs up. That's amazing. Thank you. And last but not least, I have Sade Falevita. Hi, Sade. So I want to read something about Sade. She's a multimedia producer, educator, and Sade is on a mission to nurture, potential, educate, and empower art. Sade, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this. And thank you for the introduction. So yes, I'm a multimedia producer and educator. I currently work at DCTV as the Deputy Managing Director. It's Downtown Community Television Center. We are a production house and media arts organization based in Chinatown. And we provide training and resources to folks in documentary filmmaking. Fun fact, I was a part of the youth program at DCTV when I was in high school, the youth filmmaking program. And so that definitely those roots have helped me, to get to where I am today. And after going back to school and studying journalism, I did come out and have a passion for teaching. And so, teaching has definitely been super important to me because it made such a difference in my life when I was a student to learn about filmmaking and to learn about the power of filmmaking and the impact that I could have just having a camera in my hand and understanding that there was a community outside of myself and my neighborhood, but nationally and internationally. And so it's great to come full circle. I'm happy to.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sade. On that note, something you said struck me. One of the questions that we received from the students is, what is your greatest achievement to date and why? I know all of you have that. Who wants to take that first? Not all at once. I know you have so many achievements. I mean, I'm a mom with 2 kids. I don't know. I birthed 2 humans. That's about it. So.
I can start. I don't know if this is the greatest, but one thing that I've really appreciated was being able to watch students in our program transition personally and professionally, and believe in themselves in a different type of way, see the world in a different way, understand their role and their significance in transformation, and knowing that it's not about being a certain age, but they can do things way beyond their expectations. So seeing that transformation happen in other people's lives is something that I feel like is a great achievement for them, and just I feel grateful to be a part of that journey.
That goes 2 ways.
Yeah, I guess mine is a little similar. Once a young woman, when I was at the Public Theater, she's like, Nada, you don't know it, but you're my mentor and role model because you taught me how to work. I left a volume of everything that I did documented. And my parents always impressed upon me that if I ever, if I didn't follow the values and ethics, if I wasn't grounded in the values and ethics that they taught me, that anything I learned, any accolades, any degrees, awards would be for naught. So that for me, I think that one of my greatest achievements is never wavering on my truth and my values and my ethics, and to have lived through this really problematic, past 20, 30 years, and that now there's a renewal of consciousness and awareness that we do need to be righteous and be on the right side of history and walk in our values and breathe life into justice. It feels really great because my mission was never monetary or awards, but just to be in the light and in the truth. And in that, right, you inspire other people because you just never know who's watching. And I get that feedback all the time. Like, Nada, you've inspired me because you've never sold out. You've never hurt anybody. You've accomplished your things, and, just keep it moving and keep it positive.
That's awesome. Alex, I know you got so much to say right now.
Yeah, so I mean, mine kind of piggybacks off of these great points when it has to do with teaching. So I think really being able to translate, my own passion and give it to students and see them kind of come up in their own way has been a fantastic achievement. I think, especially with the year that we've just had, one achievement that has kind of moved from my own personal life into filmmaking is being able to put my own mental health first when it comes to making films and production.
Wow.
And realizing that not only I can say no to things, but also that I don't have to be right all the time. So I think that's been kind of a personal achievement that has been revelatory in my own art and in my own filmmaking.
That's very powerful. Very powerful. Chris, I saw you nodding your head. You're like mental health.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Tell us, give it
it's
to
like-
us now.
Yeah, everyone's, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about like mental health and the arts for sure. So I just like, I don't know, I'm just like sending good energy that
Good
way
vibes.
too, because like, you know, I think that's something that everyone should probably think about a little bit in general, because it's like it's a very taxing thing to be like, you know, in production and as an artist, and it's like hard to navigate, and like, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, I guess like mental health, especially within Latino communities, sometimes it's kind of like not a priority, you know? So like it's been kind of like historically, I mean, I do think a lot about accessibility of mental health services for brown communities in general, like, and, you know, even like culturally, and like how, you know, destigmatizing that a little bit too. And I think for artists, especially who put so much of themselves into the work that they do, you know, mental health is kind of critical, I would say.
Absolutely. Tammy, do you have anything to add? I know you do.
It's about achievements. I don't know. I could talk about it like, yeah, there could be awards and
Money. Yeah.
POV and blah, 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 blah. I feel that the achievement is I've learned how to listen. And I think as a documentarian, the gift of being able to listen and not have to be right, but have to absorb, that I've been given so many opportunities to go into other people's lives that are so different than mine, and hear and learn and grow. And to me, that's an achievement. It's not something easy, but it's something I've been given the right to do, and it's a gift.
Right, and to be cognizant of it. For everyone listening today, this is really, really important. Thank you, Tammy. Juan? You're on mute.
Yeah, so pretty much possibly taking a lot from the first two that answered, but I'll say it's two great achievements. One's definitely is not selling out. I feel like I've been able to have a career without necessarily you know, obviously this is when you work in filmmaking, it's like doing a group project, right? So you need to sometimes get into consensus with the people that you are working. But as far as more than that, you know, I never have had to really change what I believe, what are my perspectives or my philosophies to be able to work even when I have done even more commercial works. The other thing is consistency. It's very hard to keep working in this industry, and it's very hard to continue doing films every year, or at least shooting videos or doing some kind of audiovisual work every year. So that consistency, I think, is also part of the other achievement that I've had, and it's also about, you know, not also taking too serious your failures, you know. The failure, not everything's going to be perfect, but you know, there's failures, and there's more failures than actually achievements, but the achievement is overcoming also those constant failures that happen.
Thank you, Juan. Okay, here's a random one. If you had a time capsule, what 3 items would you put in it?
One camera, for sure.
Camera? Okay. That's not surprising. This group.
If what? If we had
you had a time capsule, what 3 items would you put in it?
I don't know.
A camera? That may be one that, yeah, it's fine. We can move on to the next one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, unless you want to go ahead, it's fine.
I think I would put in, just off the top of my head.
For me, it'd be food somehow. It always be food.
I think I would put the writings of Pedro Albizu Campo, the music of Cortijo, and and some technological device to share and record.
Right. So you could look back on it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I put in the films of Santiago Alvarez from Cuba.
Okay.
Who said that with all the 16mm film that he shot in his life, it would go around the equator 10 times.
Wow. Wow.
And he never compromised.
Right.
A revolutionary to the day he died.
Wow. Thank you for that, Tammy. Okay. Let's see. We have one from Corey that says, which film has inspired you the most?
I think in that sense, for me, that goes depending on the time, how old I am, or what is happening in the world at that moment. So I think there are films that have inspired me, but then later they don't inspire me anymore. And there are some films that I just watched that I never had paid attention, and then for some reason they become very inspiring to me. But I'd say that there's always Cinema Paradiso. I think, that Love Letter to Cinema is a film that I always go back to. And particular and all the Latin American cinema, obviously Santiago Alvarez, as Tammy mentioned, is a huge inspiration, and the films of Patricio Guzman and the films of Pino Solanas too. So they still are references that I go back to. But I'd say, I think Cinema Paradiso stays always like that inspirational, though it might sound a cliche, but I think it also changes constantly as depending on the year and the world and what is happening.
Right. And so much is happening these days. So
yeah.
basically,
I also sometimes I'm struck by the beauty of the film and the aesthetic layers that one could read even without the sound. So when I can watch a film without the sound, kind of like Julian Schnabel's piece on the Cuban poet Rolando, I believe, Bolaño or something. To me, that's striking when I can just watch it for its visual power. And I believe that every scene, right, has to be stunningly beautiful, just like every word has to be there with purpose.
Okay, here's one. What made you pursue filmmaking or producing or directing or teaching? Whatever your craft, your specialty is, what triggered you? What happened that you decided, I'm doing this today? Was it something, an incident in your life? Was it something someone helped you to engage in?
I think
Alex?
passion is kind of deep rooted in childhood. So, I mean, my love for just cinema and all things film related definitely comes from sneaking into the movies with my father, and also just finding a language in cinema and being able to speak to my mother about that, and us really bonding over classic cinema. I didn't get to answer the last question, but if I could have thrown my
yes,
two
yes. Please.
Yeah, I always find myself coming back to like the films of Billy Wilder. So, that's definitely one that I remember watching, Witness for the Prosecution with my mother. And I think it's, those kind of milestones in childhood that definitely started me on this path.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'm taking notes because I'm so excited to learn from you too. I guess, my mother is my muse. My parents were very artistic, and there was this real ethic around continuous improvement. And so, for me, art, all of it, the visual, the story, the music, everything is just such a beautiful and authentic way to connect with people around ideas and curiosity and empathy and to imagine new possibilities, but that desire to also connect and to be a part of the art and the craft of the making of it. Because I believe that all of us, no matter what our role, have creativity. Sometimes we can earn some money, sometimes we can make a living, But I believe that creativity does need to be fostered and nurtured in society, even without like the capitalist lens of monetization and success, but just for that human enrichment, that endeavor of making together and creating together.
Absolutely. Sade, you had mentioned something about empowering through art.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the why of why I do what I do.
Why? Yes.
My experience. So when I was in the filmmaking program as a high school student, one of the opportunities that I had was to travel to New Orleans. And this was, during the Hurricane Katrina aftermath. And so actually going there, speaking with people, seeing devastation a whole year later, and just going through that entire experience, it changed the way I approach life. It changed the way that I viewed what I was doing in film. And just going through the entire program and learning about how to break down the different components of a film, learning that back end. I could never even watch a film in the same way. And that whole foundation of story, I think really sticks with me, not just in making a film, but even in how we communicate with other people.
Yes.
If I tell you a
So
story,
true. Yes.
you can connect with any part of my story as opposed to me just, making a statement. And I think that it also just changes the way that we connect with one another. And so again, like just going through that transformative experience, I think, and then having an opportunity to teach just once, after that, it just became something that I really wanted to do.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Chris, what about you? What drives you? Tell us your deepest, darkest.
Darkest. I mean, I think it's brighter than that, hopefully. But what drives me? I mean, I think like I'm definitely like keen on just telling stories that I haven't seen in like bigger formats. Like I think that I'm always interested in the perspective of an outsider. Like I think outsiders are kind of like the most interesting people, like. And so I celebrate the outsider mostly, and I think that I'm interested in seeing that. And I think I like the idea of just putting like people who haven't been seen like historically in front of the camera the most. Like I think that seeing those stories is to me like the most exciting thing, and like kind of like where I work towards the most. Like I kind of just want to see.
That's really cool.
Yeah, perspectives that I haven't seen before. And I think that just stems from like growing up and not having like a lot of representation in cinema, and like not seeing myself too much in film.
Absolutely. This is why we are here.
Yeah.
All of you. This is why Cine Youth Fest exists, because we are very passionate about what you just said, Chris, is the representation, the diversity. It needs to be there. It's ridiculous at this point, but that's exactly, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking a lot about diversity and representation, and while it's true, we need to see it in many ways to make it so vivid and real in our imagination. I'm really invested in going beyond the casting. I'm really interested in values, integrity, ethic. I mean, we know the challenges of not all the people that look like us have the values and commitment to bring along the next generation, which pains me, right? Because it's painful to know that some of our children still feel like they're going it all alone. And while it is difficult and we're kind of really swimming against the tide, we do have a commitment to make sure that we are here for the next generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tammy, do you want to add to that?
The question is, what inspired us to become filmmakers?
Yes.
And I think
making films drives you.
What drives me, I guess, is injustice. I hate it sounds so cliche, but it feels like it's just like this constant having to expose and tell the stories in a way that's compassionate and interesting. But I think I've been really lucky because I'm the generation from the Vietnam War, from the Civil Rights Movement, from the Black Power movement. And it was always about exposing. At first, I did a lot of paintings. I'm an artist, like painting type of studio art. And I felt like art was very small, that it was really reflecting of me, and it didn't, no matter what. And then I spent many years in Mexico and Cuba, and I was exposed to mural painting, and I was exposed to the arts and films of Cuba. And so it started to feel like, wow, what's the largest canvas we have? And that large canvas is our voice and is cinema. And that's the largest murals we have. So, and I'm really grateful that I have the generation I come from, because that's an experience a lot of people unfortunately can't have because of the horrible economics we live in.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. That's I'm glad that everyone is hearing, whether you're at home or you're here at the school, because that's a very important topic and something that should be addressed. Juan, you're shaking your head. It's your turn.
Okay, so very interesting. Really having a good time listening to everyone,
Yeah.
but and I'm glad because I feel like we're all like in one way or the other in the same train of thought. But I one thing I think when there's two aspects. I think there's when what made me become a documentary filmmaker and what drove me into film. I think what drove me into film at the beginning was, trying to find a way to tell stories. I've always been, when I was a teenager, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was telling stories, and I explored comic books or novels, but then, I stuck with cinema. But then as I went to the university and I became more politicized and gained more conscience, like many students, like many people, and that's why it's so important to go to the university to to grow your conscience, right, and to be in person and organizing in the university, not just taking classes, right, but being in the university open a whole other way of me seeing the world, and what drove me to be a documentary filmmaker was seeing how really the mainstream media uh, and the commercial media usually covered the story to push a capitalist agenda and pretty much not showing the reality of what was happening. And it was pretty much, a manipulation of the masses. So that's where I took on the responsibility to say, well, I want to make documentary filmmaking, and I want to make a documentary filmmaking that directly challenges that colonial narratives that mainstream media constantly reproduces. And the idea, also is that, in the larger case in Puerto Rico, for example, you will see in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria how many mainstream media from the U.S. came to Puerto Rico to show what was happening, and there was other people that mostly white people telling the stories that are ours and not telling them correctly. So that also inspires me to that immediate need that we need to tell our own stories as people of color, as Latinx, as Hispanics, however you want to identify yourself, but we need to tell our own stories.
Yes, thank you, Juan. And that's, as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month and the launching of our film festival, that's exactly a great segue into exactly what we're doing today. Let's see, we have another question that I think is really interesting. What advice would you give to an aspiring filmmaker, a student, someone starting out? Who wants to go with that? Chris, I see you.
Yeah, piece of advice. It's never too early to start. I think it's like important to start as soon as possible. Just go make stuff. Yeah, go make stuff, and like don't feel like precious about making things. Like I think a lot of people sometimes get trapped in being too precious, like, and they never finish a project. And I think like there's just something really powerful about finishing a project. Like if you finish something, then you can kind of move on and finish something else. And each project you have becomes like a continuity of work that allows you to like develop And I think also like learning about systems that exist. So like, you know, a lot of what my growth as an artist was really like trying to penetrate and learn about systems that I didn't really know about growing up.